Okay, so we're checking out Sharky. We're gonna start with the tooth here, just getting everything ready for the next assignment. One thing you might notice about the tooth right away is that we've got kind of some strange stuff going on over on this side here. If we kind of turn around, we can kind of see how it's sort of bending backwards in that area. Okay. And then here as well, we have some strange bending occurring. Okay. So let's grab this. Let's just pull it in just a little bit. Okay. What was happening there was it was pulled out so far that it was actually trying to calculate this four-sided polygon without actually bending it, but the only solution there was to cause this big old bend right in the center. We never want to do that with our polygons. We want to make sure that they're nice and even, okay, and don't have any sort of creases in them. If we see any creases like that, that's time to add more edges and shape our geometry instead of trying to just make one stretch. So this one right here, of course, as you saw, is pulled over quite a bit, so we'll pull this in. And our geometry on both sides, I mean, this is a pretty symmetrical tooth, so it should ideally match up pretty well. You can see from the front view here, it does match up fairly well. From front to back, you can see there's no places where I have, you know, something kind of off from one side to the next, kind of like what I've just done here, where I've created kind of multiple lines by not having these in line with one another. It's much easier to view if you don't have all these lines, extra lines hanging around, so make sure you keep stuff like that in line. Like I said, you've done a good job with that, looking at it from this side. However, if we look at our tooth from the side, we do see a lot of this kind of going on where we have double lines, alright? And you can see how confusing that gets to look at. So let's try to fix this as much as we can. What we can do is we can come into our side view here. We can use our scale tool to actually line things up with one another by scaling them in the Y direction and the X direction. Make sure you don't just grab this middle handle and start scaling. I'll show you what happens if you do that. If you're grabbing that middle handle, it's also going to scale things inwards. It's going to cause a lot of problems for you later on. So make sure, again, you're just using X and Y when we're working on this from the side. And of course, when I did scale those, because one of them was off from the center, they both now are off from the center, so make sure you move them back to that center line where you want them. And it helps sometimes to look at it in perspective mode and just manually grab two verts that should be opposite one another, so you're sure of which ones you're grabbing. For example, these ones are quite far from each other in the side view, so it might have been a little difficult to tell that they were supposed to be together. So move those. And we could line this center one up with them as well. It'd be fine. Or we could even bring these up a hair, just so we can kind of see what's happening a little more easily. Let's take a look at these two and see how they're looking. Okay, they are a little bit pulled in, so we've got kind of a thicker part here, and it's sort of thinning in you may want to bring those out a bit so that they're a little more in line with these down here, okay? It's kind of a question of how you want to shape things, alright? Let's try these ones right here on either side. Taking a look at those. Okay, again, they're quite far away from each other. One is up here, one is down here. So we need to come and bring those into line with one another. Maybe move them up a bit. Okay. Move them up to about there. And we'll move on down to the next one. As I'm doing this, you can kind of see the drastic differences between these. Again, we have one up here and one way down here. So we'll just pull those together using our scale tool. Just pull them in, make sure they're on that center line, as close as we can get it. I'm going to pull those up as well. Okay. Maybe something like that. Let's grab these next ones. Just kind of a lather, rinse, and repeat sort of thing. Pulling them up. Okay, so these edges are now in line with one another, but all of these guys in the middle are still not, okay? So we need to make sure that we take care of those as well. I'm going to actually grab all 4 of these all the way around, okay? And that way I can use my scale tool in the Y direction to make sure that they are, in fact, even with each other from front to back, okay? And we can also take this opportunity to scale them in or out as we want them. So something probably about like that is good, okay? And these look pretty well aligned, okay? So that's looking good. These maybe could be out a little more. It's a little bit drastic at the moment. As well as these. Probably come out just a bit more. And these down here. We can maybe bring those in just a little bit. Okay. It's going to improve the overall shape of your tooth. You may also want to bring these in from this direction a bit, okay? Or one way you can go about this is to leave those and just grab all of these guys. Just bring them in a bit to give this more shape, okay? And of course, if we do that, we're also going to bring these in as well. Because we don't really need all these edges here unless we're actually going to be shaping them a little bit, using them for some kind of curve, okay? We want to make sure that anytime we're putting in edges that we're using them to kind of enhance the outline of our shape. And so let's go down one more and grab these on either side. You can see just by looking at it that they're quite off from one another. Very far. Just pull those in together. We can bring them up if we want. We can pull them out. looks like this one could be pulled in just a little bit. So, you know, just by doing that, this is much easier to look at and much simpler to understand and to manipulate later on should you have to ever make changes to this tooth. It will be much simpler now that you can see easily each set of vertices and what's going on, okay? So just keep it clean like that. Just make small adjustments, trying to keep those smooth curves going as much as you can. These ones as well, right here, are pretty far off from one another. So again, bring those together. And because we have kind of this paper thin thing going on at the bottom here, it's a little bit difficult to tell, but these are actually coming back to the back of the tooth, which is not what we want. We want them to kind of sit right there in the center line of our tooth, alright? There's another instance where we've kind of wandered away from the center line. So we want to bring things like this in. Okay. That's going to drastically improve the shaping of the tooth. So make sure that you take some time on that and deal with those issues. Next we're going to move on to Sharky and see what we've got going on with Sharky. Make sure you take him out of reference mode, okay? So we can click on him and do all kinds of fun stuff. Sharky's actually looking pretty good. There are a couple of issues. First, just a simple one is the mouth here. It's very wide, flat rectangles that we have here, and ideally we want that to come down quite a bit. I'm going to go to shading right up here and X-ray so that I can now see through Sharky and kind of see what I have going on with the lower lip here. I'm going to go to vertex mode, and I'm going to grab this entire bottom jaw row right here, okay? So you can take a look here. It's just all these verts on this last row of the bottom jaw. I'm going to use the scale tool to bring those in quite a bit. I don't want to bring them into a paper thin point. I just want to bring them in something about like this, okay? That's going to help improve the shaping of Sharky's mouth when we smooth him out later on, okay? Next thing I want to look at, just briefly while we're in this area, is you want to make sure that you're following all the time the natural curves of Sharky's body. You should never see any kind of zigzaggy lines. So, for example, in this case, if we follow this curve down, we're going a nice smooth curve, and then all of a sudden it just kind of changes directions, goes out this way, and then changes again to this smooth curve. So we want to make sure that we avoid that by grabbing problem areas like that and scaling them out. Same thing here. Once we've changed that, that kind of slightly changes our curves over here as well. So we'll want to scale these guys out to adjust them. Now you can see up the length of the body we have this nice smooth curve going on. Okay, you just want to follow that natural flow as much as possible, right? So that's looking good now. Now, one thing that, you know, it may be a little hard to pick up on at first, but that you might notice is if you kind of look in this region next to this little fin right here, you might see this line sort of flickering in and out of existence. which is a bit strange. It's indicative of possibly some geometry problems here. They can be sometimes hard to figure out, but this is a good indicator that something strange is indeed going on and causing some problems. So one thing to look at is to look inside Sharky and see if you can spot anything weird going on there. Now, if you look very closely right here, you might notice there are two edges here, okay, instead of one going across, so that might be the problem or part of the problem. Another thing that we can do is actually hit the 3 key on the keyboard, okay, and that's going to put Sharky in smooth preview mode. What that's going to do is smooth out all of our faces, and if we have any faces on top of faces that we can't see in our regular mode, they will become apparent when we hit that 3 key and smooth things out. For example, if I hit 1, it'll go back to its regular mode. So we have this polygon right here, just a nice square, okay? Looks normal. There's some weird things happening around it, but when we hit that 3 key, now we have 1, 2, and 3 different shapes going on here. Okay, so basically this is a rounded out version of that rectangle. So it's actually 3 separate rectangles sitting right on top of one another. And that usually happens as a result of accidentally extruding something without moving the extrusion later or right away. So, you know, for example, I go to grab the face to extrude somewhere. Maybe I marquee selected and I accidentally selected this guy on the other side, and I do my thing, do my little extrusion. If I go ahead and do an extrusion on a face here, and I don't move it, don't rotate it, don't do anything with it, and I click away and I do something else, what I get then is this extra face that's sitting exactly on top of another face, okay? So if I pull that out, my extrusion is still there, and all these faces all the way around are still there, but I just can't see them often until it's too late. So we'll go back and undo that example extrusion that I did, but that is essentially what has happened here. So we have this extruded face that we don't want. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to face mode. I'm going to grab this face and move it out. And I'm going to go to vertex mode. And then I'm move, clicking on these vertices one at a time. Just going to move them around and see what happens. Okay, so when I move that one, and this is just, I'm just moving them up and down. And what this is doing is showing me where the extra geometry is kind of hidden, okay? And it's exposing that extra geometry so that I can see it. Okay, so this is kind of what we've got. We can also grab this corner as well and make sure nothing weird is going on there. Nothing too weird anyways. So now we have all these extra faces, so what do we do with them? There's actually a pretty easy way to deal with this one particular situation, and that's going to be to merge these vertices. Alright, so what we can do is come up to Edit Mesh, Merge Vertex Tool. You can click this little box on the right side of the Merge Vertex Tool screen, and we want to merge to Target Vertex. Okay, go ahead and hit X, Now, when I open that tool, my mouse turns into a little crosshairs, okay? Well, what I can do now is go ahead and click and drag on a vertex to another vertex right here. And when I release the mouse button, it will now merge those two vertices into one, okay? So I've merged those together. I can go all the way around and merge these vertices, okay? And what this has done has actually gotten rid of those faces going all the way around, okay? Those are now merged together in one single edge. So those faces, those extra faces that we had no longer exist. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to go ahead and merge these verts with the ones down here. Okay. So as soon as I click and drag this one, that face that was sitting right there is now just this edge and is no longer there, causing problems. Just drag that down and drag that down as well. And we also have this extra edge right here. We'll drag that over. Okay. I'm going to hit Q to quit my tool. Alright. It's very important to remember to hit Q, because if you don't, you may accidentally end up merging vertices where you don't mean to. Alright, you don't want to do that. So once we've done that, you always want to double check and make sure that you have in fact gotten rid of all the extra faces. The way you can do that is just by grabbing a vertex and pulling it around and seeing if anything pops out that shouldn't, right? And I recommend doing this all the way around the affected area, okay? You can just move it around and then Z back when you're done double checking it. So everything looks good there. Now, I did move a few things around while I was doing that, so it's a good idea for me to look at this from the side and fix any issues that I may have caused shaping-wise. All right. Like these are now quite far off from one another. So I should bring those guys together. Probably pull them up quite a bit. I can also pull these up as well. The reason being is that there's a lot of bending of these polygons going on right here, okay? And they're probably just a little bit too tight as well. That's also going to cause some of that bending that you're seeing. So you'll want to pull those up just a little bit. And these as well, to help stop that really severe polygon bending that you have going on there. Okay, it's going to make things a little cleaner. Bring this up as well. Maybe not that far. And also, you can see right here that the shape is being affected pretty heavily, so just make sure that you're keeping things in line, double checking things when you're shaping them, whenever you're moving anything around, just go through and double check things may have moved or shifted, and you want to make sure that everything is where it needs to be again. This guy right here should be moved down quite a bit. Okay, should be in line with this area right here. All right, and this should also be moved down, as well as this. Okay. Really this should look like kind of just an outline of what's happening on the inside of the fin right here. Okay, this shape that you've got should be kind of mimicked on the outer edges here. Okay. Like so. Okay, so everything looks good there. There's a little bit of a bump going on here. You want to check that out. Bring it in. Make sure it's following your curves nicely. Okay, and then we come to the tail fin, and there's a lot going on here. I'm just gonna tell you right now. So if we go ahead and go to our smooth preview mode, you will notice some things pop out like here where there's one edge, or should be, there's actually this kind of bubble forming, okay? And there's all kinds of unusual little shapes going on around down in this area, okay? And the same on the other side as well here, okay? We also have these edges here that are coming into the middle of these polygons in there, just stopping. Okay, they should go all the way around the fin. So, so there are a few geometry problems here, so let's go ahead and fix those. We're going to start in this area on the top of the tail, alright? This should actually come in like this, alright? Should be coming inwards as the tail begins to thin, okay? And so what should be ideally happening with this geometry here is what we're trying to do by adding this edge is to go ahead and thin the geometry down from 1, 2, 3, and 4 sections across the top to only 2 sections across the top here, okay? So, you know, if you're not, that was probably a little confusing. If you look at it from the top, we kind of had 4 main sections when we started with the basically cubical shark. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just trying to thin that geometry down because you can see on the tail here we have 1 and 2 faces on this top area. So we're just trying to take that geometry from 4 across to only 2 across, alright? And the way that we do that is first by adding this edge, as you have done here, okay, which is great. But then we missed a step, and that was to merge vertices right here in this area. Okay, so let's go to Edit Mesh, Merge Vertex tool. We've got our Merge Vertex tool again. And what we're going to do is just grab this vertex right here. We're going to pull it up and merge it with this juncture right here where the tail begins, okay? It's just going to pull it up just like that. Alright. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Boop. Just like that. And so what we've done is essentially we've made this shape that looks like a triangle, but of course whenever we're working in 3D we don't want any shapes that have any more or less than 4 sides, so we're always looking for 4-sided shapes. So we've thinned it down. It looks like a triangle, but this is in truth actually a 4-sided polygon, because what we have here is 1 edge, 2 edges, 3 edges, and 4 edges. These edges that we brought through the middle here actually divide this big long edge that we had into 2 edges, making this a 1, 2, 3, and 4-sided polygon, which is good. We like that. While we're dealing with our Merge Vertex tool, again, remember we've got these extra edges right here. If we zoom in on them really close, we can kind of see where those are separated. we'll just come up to Edit Mesh Merge Vertex tool, and we'll merge those two vertices together as well. Okay, and that will solve that problem for us. Okay, and that fixes this area of the top of the tail. Let's also look at the bottom of the tail and make sure things are correct down there. I'm going to hit Q for quit to exit out of my Merge Vertex tool. I'm going to go to Vertex mode. I'm just going to grab one of those vertices, move it, and we can see that these verts, even though they are very close to each other, they are not connected. Okay, they are not merged. So we need to make sure that we do in fact merge them together. Okay, so we're going to come up to Edit Mesh, Merge Vertex tool, click and drag, and these verts are now merged together rather than just sitting very close to one another, which is just not the same thing, and it won't work when we're trying to add more edge loops later. Okay, so we fixed that. However, because we didn't merge those from the beginning, every time we extruded, we still got extra geometry that was showing up all the way around. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean here. If we go ahead and check our smooth mode, we have all these extra faces kind of going all the way around this area. Alright, so we want to make sure we get rid of those as well. So let's go to Edit Mesh, Merge Vertex tool, and we're going to merge some more vertices. We're going to go ahead and grab those guys, put them together. Okay, and we can also take and drag this one that we just created over to that one right there. Okay, it's going to put those together. And let's go on the other side here, start dealing with some of these. Now if you look very closely, there are two verts sitting right in a line next to one another. They're just hanging around right in the middle of this polygon. So, you know, you can only do so much looking at things just like this, so you may have to actually grab some of these vertices and move them around to help you reveal that extra geometry that's sitting there. Because as you can see, you know, I might not have seen this problem before, but once I move that vertex, now we can see that extra face that is actually sitting there. Same thing here, we're going to go all the way around and just start moving things a little bit, making sure nothing extra is just kind of appearing out of nowhere. Okay. And then of course this vert right here is maybe far off the mark. We want to bring that up closer in line to the others here. Okay, so we've got that extra face. We'll go ahead and use our Merge Vertex tool on it now. So that's taking care of this area. At least we think so. We should check again, of course, with our 3 key. Okay. Shouldn't see any random stuff popping out from anywhere along this line. Okay. Now, one thing that may be really difficult to see because this is so thin is some of the geometry that we have going on here. So let's pull this out quite a bit. It really shouldn't be quite so thin. It makes it very difficult to work with, very difficult to read and understand. Okay, so we're going to pull some of this out so that we can really see what is going on in this area. I'm just grabbing these and using the scale tool just to give myself a little more room to work with and a little more space to see my geometry. Okay. So if you look closely, you may notice there are actually a couple of floating vertices just hanging out here in the middle of nowhere. We don't want those guys. They can be difficult to spot sometimes. Just make sure you're looking very closely in vertex mode at this area. See 2 of them right here. Okay, make sure that you delete those guys, because they will cause problems for you later if you do not. Okay? And again, we're just going to continue on this bottom part here to move vertices around and make sure that we find all of these strange faces that are kind of popping out of the woodwork. Okay, so there's a few. I think we've got all of them in that area, so into a place where we can see them. So let's go ahead and start using our Merge Vertex tool again to get rid of these extra faces, which we don't want. Okay. Oop. Alright, just like that, I'm going to hit the Q tool to quit that Merge Vertex tool again. Okay, so now our shark tail is looking a lot better. Let's again go to 3 here and see if things are looking pretty much the way we are expecting them to. And again, just go through every one of these and just pull them around and see if you see anything weird. Like this, for example. What's happening here is we've got another case of a floating vertex that's causing this bend to happen here where there is no edge intersecting. Okay, so make sure you get rid of those guys wherever you see them. Floating vertices are bad. Pull that back down. So yeah, it's just a lot of moving things around, testing things, making sure that you're grabbing all these extra verts. So again, here we have this other floating vertex. Okay, to get rid of. And often when you see one, you may see many more kind of following a line. For example, that one was right about here. If I continue up, there's another one right here. This can kind of help you find these guys. Here's another one. They're just going up the fin in sort of a straight line. Here's another. And another. And it's going all the way around. Here's some more. Another one. Another one right here. And another. So these are going, again, all the way around the fin. The way that happens is when you delete an edge loop without deleting the vertices. So for example, if I were to grab this edge loop here, okay, I say, no, I don't really need this edge loop, I don't really want it, I'm just going to delete it, and I just hit the delete key. I have deleted the edge, but I have not deleted any of the vertices that were a part of that edge. They're all still here, and that's going to keep me from ever adding new edges in this area. It's going to cause me all kinds of problems. So the proper way to delete an edge loop would be to grab it and come up to Edit Mesh, delete edge / vertex. When I do that, not only is the edge gone, but all of the vertices that were part of that edge are also now deleted. Okay, and that will save you from having to go through, like we have here, looking for these little stray left behind vertices. Okay, here's another. Because you can see this, this can get quite tedious and time consuming. Okay, so I've gotten rid of all those extra floaty vertices. Another thing that we're going to look at here on the tail is, you may have noticed when I grabbed this edge loop on the tail, it stopped right here. Okay, didn't go all the way around and over to the other side of the tail. The reason that is because here we have a 5-sided polygon. Okay, anytime we come up with a 5-sided polygon, or a polygon that's really any number at all besides 4, mine is kind of not going to know what to do with it. When you want to grab an edge loop, for example, or when you want to add new edge loops, it's going to come to something like this, and it's just going to stop because it's not going to know whether it should continue this way or this way. All right. So let's go ahead and make this into some nice 4-sided polygons instead of 5-sided ones, and then Maya will be happy. Hopefully, that's the idea. So let's come up to our edit mesh, and we're gonna do interactive split tool. All right. It's gonna make my mouse into a little pointer, and it'll give me a little orange dot that can go along the edges here. Okay. I'm just going to click on this junction right here where this edge that's coming over just kind of stops. And it's going to draw a line pretty much wherever I'm pointing. I'm going to come over here and click on this edge right there. Okay, as well as the next one and the next one. And I'm going to come around to the other side, and I'm going to click on that junction right there again where that line is coming and just stops. Okay. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to complete the tool. Alright, and that's going to make my edges permanent. Alright, now you might notice that what happened here was that it came around this bar, and then it kind of went a little crazy, go nuts, and that's kind of a common thing with the insert edge loop tool, or the interactive split tool. When you're dealing with faces that are not 4-sided faces, alright? It can cause all kinds of problems like this and others. That's why we try so hard to keep all our faces in line. So what we're going to do instead to kind of go around this problem is get rid of these weird faces that we have going on here. Okay, so pretty much this all turned out fine. Right here is where my line stopped again and went a little crazy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all those faces, and I'm just going to delete them. Okay. Now we have a great big hole in our shark, but we'll go ahead and fix this by just pulling out one of these edges here, or a couple of these edges, sorry, bringing them over, and we'll use our merge vertex tool to just kind of sew these parts together again, okay? So we're making kind of a flap and then just sewing it on. So we're going to grab these 2 edges where our gap starts, okay? Come up to Edit Mesh, Extrude. And of course, whenever we extrude something, we want to immediately move it, or scale it, or rotate it, or something, so that we know that it's there, and it doesn't become another face on top of a face. Okay? So we'll do something kind of like that. And then I'll go ahead and extrude it one more time, and of course move it immediately. Just something like that will be fine. Okay. I'm going to come up to my Edit Mesh Merge Vertex tool, and we're just going to kind of go along these edges and just sort of sew them up using our Merge Vertex tool. So this edge on our flap here corresponds to this edge at the edge of the gap there, so we'll just go ahead and merge those 2. Same thing here, we'll click and drag to merge those. Click and drag. So it's kind of like just sewing this together. Okay, so that was the last one. Of course, this one we did not merge to anything, so it's still hanging out way over there in no man's land. We can just pull that in, nice and easy. And you can see now that we've done that, we do have an edge loop that continues all the way around the fin. Okay, it's all connected now and it's good to go. Okay, but we still have this one up here. Okay, right here. So we need to, of course, fix that as well. So I'm actually going to show you a little bit different technique for this one. Instead of adding new edges with our interactive split tool, we're just going to get rid of our problem edges, alright, and we'll just add a new edge loop all the way around. Okay? Anytime we have edges like this that are kind of stopping in the middle of a polygon, they're going to cause our tool, which adds new edge loops, not to function properly. So at this point, we would not be able to add a new edge loop here. Okay, so for example, I'll try it out at Mesh. We'll go to Insert Edge Loop tool, and I'll try to add a new edge loop, and you'll see it will only go this far. Once it hits that weird polygon, it doesn't know which direction to go any longer. So this really limits us in terms of what we can do. Again, as soon as it hits this strange polygon here, it can't function. Okay, so I'm going to hit Q to exit that tool that I was using. So what I'm going to do is just grab this edge that's causing our 5-sided polygon, okay? And I'm going to go up to Edit Mesh, delete edge/vertex. Alright, it's going to delete it. It's gone. And what you'll notice is that where there were 2 edges before, you can see 1 and 2, there's now 1, okay? So now we have a 1, 2, 3, and 4-sided polygon. Now what I can do is use my Insert Edge Loop tool, and you can see now when I try to add an edge loop, it does continue all the way around, okay? Once I've added my new edge loop, and that was a bit high, I'm going to change my tool settings here. Yours will probably already be set to do this, where you can just click and drag where you want that edge to be. I'm going to put mine right there, maybe. And you will, of course, want to use your guide to do this, okay? You won't want to just guess like I am right now. You want to use your outline that you have of Sharpie, okay? I'm going to hit Q to make sure I quit the Insert Edge Loop tool. Otherwise, every time I click on something, I'm going to be adding edge loops. Alright, so hit Q to exit that tool. And we'll just grab these vertices, and we'll bring them back out to where we had them before, okay? Which was probably something like that, alright? And again, you'll just use your outline to make sure that you have that correct, okay? We'll also want to shape this area a little bit now that we've kind of messed with it a lot. For example, right here we've got this kind of perfectly flat thing going on right along this line. So you want to grab it and pull it down just a little bit. Don't go crazy with it. Just so that it's got a little bit of shape. And of course we did all kinds of crazy stuff in here as well. So we'll want to grab things like this and use our scale tool to line them up. Alright, I'm going to grab everything along this line and scale it in Y until I have a nice straight line, and just pull it up. Same thing here. Just going to pull things in line, pull them down a bit. This keeps our model nice and clean and easy to work with. Right? Okay, so with that was all of the issues that I saw with Sharky today. So make sure you take a look at all of those and address them accordingly. Especially make sure that you take a good look at this tail fin area and get that all sorted out. Alright? Let me know if you have any questions about any of the stuff you saw today in the video or anything else. And other than that, happy modeling.